But let's start a brand new exercise that'll kind of give us the idea or just kind of give us the basics of this first. So up on tracks, so just save your bike site and close that out of brackets. And up on tracks, in our Tuesday, Thursday, in our resources, there's a new folder called 05 Media Queries and a zip file called blocks. Let's grab that. This is in our exercises and videos 05 Media Queries. We're going to grab our blocks.zip. And also, if you don't have it with you, make sure that you've got a blank HTML5 templates as well, so you can kind of work with that. And I'll snag that again, because we're going to start a brand new document. We're not going to use our bike site for this part of it here. So active resources, starter HTML, HTML5 templates, RWD. I'm sorry? It's in exercises and videos. 05. And I'm just going to name this blank folder media queries here. You'll notice that blocks just has 4 images in there that we're going to copy over into our images folder of our blank site here in a second. I'll let everybody kind of get caught up. So we got our HTML5 templates to start with, and our 05 it's a blocks.zip. Grab those two, open those two up. And then when you're ready, just move those 4 JPEGs over into your images folder. I'm just going to throw those in there. I don't need blocks anymore. So I should have my website starter with my 4 JPEGs in my images folder, so we can use them. Caught up. Everybody good over here? Getting good? You getting good?
Well, I got my blocks.
Okay.
But I was looking for this blank HTML. So I have my bike site here.
Well, you got to go download the zip. Do you have your zip file for our starter kit?
Maybe I could just send you here to the.
Go grab a starter kit. And then you can move those images. Everybody good? Having trouble? You need your starter kit. So, back to resources, scroll over down, starter HTML. There you go, your HTML. There you go. Grab that and then just move your image, those 4 images, into the images folder of your starter kit. So we're starting a brand new, we're just starting a brand new one, so we're not learning inside that complicated thing. We ready to roll? Yeah? Okay. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to build a little itty bitty site that has the 4 blocks in there in divs. We're going to have 4 divs with a JPEG each. And we're just going to build it where they're stacking one on top of each other in a phone orientation. Okay? So I'm going to have you help me build it because I forgot already. So I'm opening my index and my style. So all I want to do is change my page title here, blocks practice. And what do I always start with? My wrapper, right? Div class equals wrapper. And we're just going to make a very, very simple layout with these 4 blocks, just one right after each other vertically. So let's go to my style. And how do we style our wrapper? Huh? Say loud, say proud. Dot wrapper. Well, that wasn't very loud or proud. Dot wrapper. Da 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 da. Oh, I found my pen. Great. All right. So, dot wrapper. What's my position? Static. There you go. What's my width? Sure. Do I have a max width on this thing? Do I ever want it to stop growing?
1200.
Do I want to center my site? Sure. How do I do it? Margin 0 auto. Right. There you go. Now, coincidentally, if you're ever building one of those sites that goes edge to edge, then you don't have to put the max width in the centering part, you know, if you ever decide you're going to build a edge to edge site. Okay. All right, my wrapper. All right, so let's, so I just want to make some divs now that I'm going to have, each div is going to have its own JPEG in there. So I'm going to have 4 divs is what I want to build. Cool? All right. Are they all basically the same? If I just got 4 blocks, one right after each other? Yeah. Do I need classes and all that stuff?
No.
Probably not. They can all kind of share the same style, right? Sounds good. We'll say that it's content. It's content-ish. So what kind of div am I using now? If it's content. Article. At least I heard somebody say article. Right? Right. All right. And then how do I put my image of my first image in? And then 1.jpg. And then we'll do alt, and we'll call this 1. All right. So then all I need you to do is make me 3 more of those. So we got a 1, 2, 3, and 4. Take a look at it here, make sure that it's, yeah, there you go. There's my desktop size there. Looking pretty good, huh? So, but just like our phone size, they just kind of go on forever. It'd be great if I could rearrange these columns of content. It'd be great. Everybody got kind of that going on? Huh? What's happening, sister? Yeah, you can see. Okay, so let's go back into our CSS and let's style these articles here a little bit. Let's give some space around stuff, some margins around it to make it a little bit more realistic. Most of your content is not going to be like this, where they're just like buttoned up against each other. They're going to have margins to deal with and things like that. So let's make it a little bit more like a realistic layout here. So in our style here, I'm going to create my article. And I didn't have to put a dot. Why? Not a class. We're just talking to our articles. Okay. So let's put a little bit of margin top. Or well, sorry. What's my position? There you go. Static. There you go. And then let's put a little bit of margin top on these guys at like 2 rem. There you go. That kind of spaces these out vertically. And then let's do 5%. Let's do 2% on each side, so they kind of suck in a little bit. So I have a choice. I can either give myself a margin left at 2%, a margin right at 2%, or I prefer to give myself a width and then center it. So I'll do 4 minus 100 is 96, right? So I'll say width of 96%, and then I'll center it, right, with my margin 0 auto thing going on. Oops. There you go. But my margin top got screwed up, sorry. I'll do the longhand then. Margin left auto, margin right auto, to not screw up my top margin there. Or I could have done it shorthand, but I won't do shorthand today. Okay, now, so margin top 2 rem, margin left auto, margin right auto. And in fact, I'm going to reduce this a little bit because it's not visually very nice. There you go, that's a little bit better. So I got spaces between stuff. My images aren't going edge to edge. I got margins that I got to deal with, that sort of thing. Did you put 0? Did you do 0 auto?
I'm fixing that right now.
No, you need 4 articles. Okay. Yeah, you need 4 separate articles. So real quick, just because I want to deal with them separately. I want to like be able to rearrange them separately as 4 separate things. So here's what I did. You want to take a look? I think you got it. I'm practicing it like it's art, like it's content. Okay. You know, like it's real, like text and stuff like that. So it could have been a generic div for this practice. Got it? Great. Okay. So here's what I want to do. I want to, at a certain point, I want to make this thing go 2 columns for a tablet and 4 columns wide for a desktop. So I'm going to take these guys and rearrange them. So this is great. So I could have like if I was looking at my bike site, this would be like my bike of the week with my photo and my image and my text, my H's and paragraphs and things like that would be in like block 1, and then my map and directions would be in block 2, that sort of thing, right? And then now I'm just rearranging these blocks then. So one thing that so here's how we start a media query. So I'm going to make myself a little note. I'm going to say tablet starts here, because it's real easy to get confused when you're doing your code and you're like, oh, am I in my media query stuff or am I in my phone stuff? I can't figure out. So I give myself little notes. All right. So here's how you start a media query. It's @media space screen space and min width, and we're going to say 900 is our tablet size. So it's @media space screen space and min width 90%, 90 pixels. I'm sorry. That means When I get to a minimum size of 900 pixels, then this thing starts taking over. I have to be at least at 900 for this thing to start listening. The reason why screen is there is you can actually have a print media query. So let's say you've got an invoice. Let's say you're doing a shopping cart and you've got an invoice that shows up on your screen. You can also, if somebody hits print to print the screen, you can actually have a media query that rearranges things to be more print friendly. So that's kind of neat. But that's why that screen is there. You can switch that with print if you want to. All right. So what I make sure, one of the things that I make sure this thing's listening to me and working is I like to, and also as a troubleshooting method, I always like to change the color of my background color of my body, so I can kind of tell at any one moment which media query I'm looking at when I'm looking at my browser. So my body's white for phone. Let's say my body, I'm going to make this a background color of green. And notice I've got my curly braces to start and end my media query, and then I'm tabbing in, and I've got my CSS for what's ever inside my media query in between those two braces. So I got to make sure that I'm inside these braces here, that one and that one, before I start putting my CSS in. If I don't close it, then it's gonna get all messed up. So I'm going to make my body background color of green. So when I know that when I get to this point here, 900, that, hey, I'm in my tablet now. So phone still, tablet starts, right? And then I'm going to make a second media query. Desktop starts here. I'm going to say, hey, same thing, at media, screen, and scroll up a little bit. Min width, I'm going to go 1100 pixels for this, or you can do 1200 if you want. That's kind of the size of our wrapper. We'll do 1200, that's the size of our wrapper. And I'm going to change that body again, that body background color, to purple. So now we should be able to say, as we pull out the size of our window, we should be able to tell at any one moment what media query we're looking at in our browser. And I like to keep those in there just for troubleshooting purposes. I'm always coloring my divs because then I can see the edges of them and that sort of thing. So when I look at it, I should go from white to green to purple at my different sizes of width sizes. It is centering, but the images stop growing at a certain point because I only saved them out at like 800 pixels wide. So your site's centering. If you put a color in your wrapper, if you put a background color in your wrapper, you can kind of see it happening right now. With mine, see it's centering, but then my images just stop growing because they're too small. Okay, so let's start fixing this. Okay, so at this point, when it turns green, when I get into my tablet, I want these to go 2 columns wide. And then when I go to my purple, when I go to my desktop, I want them to go 4 columns wide. So let's stick with the green, let's stick with my tablet, and let's start taking a look. So my article, there's a couple of things that I need to change about it, right? So I'm back in my tablet media query. So I'm going to type my article. So what do I got to change about it? If I want these things, just in plain English, what do I got to change? If I want these things to be a 2 column, what do I got to change about these articles? I got to float them. Yeah, because I got to make them go side by side. Now, they're not going to float at this size, right? At 96% wide, they're not going to float side by side. So what do I have to do? Somebody said it. The width. I got to mess with my width to make them smaller, right? And then if I want them to go side by side, I can't center them anymore. So I probably have to mess with what? No, not my position. They're still static. Probably I need to mess with my margins. Yeah. All right. Because I had my margins set at auto. And I'm not going to be able to do that anymore if I want them side by side because I can't center two things at the same time. So let's do one thing at a time. All right. So somebody said I got to float them. So I'm going to float left. Look at it. They're not going to do much because they're too big, right? And then I know what did I say about my margins? We said we were going to do 2% on the sides, right? Okay, so I got to figure out my math now. I got to figure out my math for now. If I had my Illustrator file, I could go in and measure and figure out my math that way. We're going to reverse engineer a little bit. So I've got my two squares. I know I want 2% here on this side. I know I want 2% here on this side. And I know I need to leave, so it doesn't butt up against, I need to leave 2% there, right? So I probably need a margin left of 2% on my divs, and that'll push each other away from each other and from the left-hand side. And then so to keep this empty here, I need to figure out my width for these guys. So how might I do that? What would be a good reverse engineered calculation? So somebody said 100%. Because this all adds up to 100, right? Yeah. Okay. Minus 246%. And I got two blocks. Right, so 100% minus 6% divided by 2 is 47%. Ooh, that's nice when it adds up just right. So my width now on my articles need to be 47%. Does everybody understand how we got that calculation? We just kind of reversed it. Again, if I had an Illustrator file to measure from, I could have just done that. Okay, so my width is now 47%, and since I'm floating them left, I need to bring those margin lefts in. So margin left of 2%. I don't need to change my position because they're still pushing each other out of the way. They're still position static. So I'm not changing it from like a float from like a fixed to a static or whatever, which I could, but I don't want to. There you go. So now, with just that little bit of finagling, I got a two-column layout. Pretty neato. So now as I go back, one column, it hits that media query, and boom, goes to two columns. So can you see how that's already going to work with your design? You're going to take those blocks that were one column and just start changing the size, floating them, changing the margins, and you got it. All right, so let's fix this for my desktop size. I don't want these two gigantic columns. I want 4 smaller columns for my desktop. So what do I got to fix? I got to still fix my articles. And now I'm in my media query for my desktop, right? So I got to change, I don't need to change my margins because those are going to stick with 2%. But I do need to fit, and I don't need to float them because they're already floated because these add up, right? So I've got my phone, it's phone first, and then it picks up the tablet. So it's tablet now, and now I got to fix just the things that go from tablet to desktop. They build on each other. So I don't need to float them. I don't need to say float again because they're already floated now. So really, what do I need to change? Just my width. So let's figure that out. So now, again, Boy, this thing is wanting to rock and roll. Okay, now I got 4 blocks with 2% on the left-hand side, and I want to make sure I got 2% left over for my right, so they go all the way to the edge. This all adds up to 100. So now I got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 10%. Or, well, 100 minus 10% divided by 4, which is 90, divided by 4, because I got 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks. And that gives me my width of 90 divided by 4 is what? 22 and a half. Make that change. So if I just change my width on my articles to 22 and a half, that should go to a 4 column.
You got it.
Now I've got a 4 column layout. So the basic idea, so that's the idea. As I'm going down my line in my medias queries, I'm just changing the 1 or 2 things that I need to change. If that hero image is still going 100% wide, full width, phone to tablet to desktop, do I need to do anything with it? No. But if you've got units of content that need to start kind of rearranging themselves, that's how you do it.